Hello everybody, my name's Stephen and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be looking at doing a wrap up of the books I've read in March. Before we get started however, I'd like to introduce you to my director, Lucifer. He's currently looking out of the window and checking to make sure we're not going to get disturbed while recording this video. And now back to our content. So I read a total of 13 books in March and that comprised of 3 series which I'm going to go over with you now. The first one I'm going to talk about is Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody, Volume 13. Now I'll give you a quick overview of the series before I get into book 13, so here goes. Suzuki, an overworked programmer, suddenly finds himself thrown into another world in a life or death situation. He soon adopts the alias Sato, which is his name of his avatar he uses in his. Luckily this world seems to be based on a game type logic and he has some broken skills at hand. Suddenly going from level 1 to 310, he decides to go on a sightseeing tour of the world while he picks up companions along the way, forming a party. Although occasionally he fights demons and demon lords, this is a heartwarming fantasy adventure and this story follows him and his party as they take on the world. Now book 13 picks up with the party in Labyrinth City. Back and bigger than ever, our hero and his party are ready to conquer the depths of the labyrinth itself. But no adventure would be complete without Sato's brand of philosophy. He soon finds himself building an adventure school for newbie adventurers because he sees the plight they're in. But what perils await them in the labyrinth when they go down training? To find that out, you'll need to actually read the book. Now, if you'd like some more in-depth review on this series, I'd be more than happy to do this because it's actually one of my favourite light novel series at the moment. And I'd be quite happy to pick this up from volume 1 again and look at maybe reviewing 3 novels at a time, as well as going into some more in-depth world building and character building aspects along the way. So if you want to see something like that, please let me know in the comments below. Now next up for review is If It's For My Daughter, I'd Even Defeat a Demon Lord. It's actually 9 books in this series. I've actually read through books 1 to 7 in the month of March, which I'm going to be giving a quick overview on and my thoughts on these series as a whole to date. So what are the books about, you might ask? They actually follow 2 people, Dale and Latina. So Dale is an adventurer granted divine protection by the gods, given the mark of a hero, and he's one of the few people in the world who can actually kill a demon lord. One day on his way home from an adventure, he comes across a small devil child wasting away in the middle of the forest with a broken horn. This is actually the mark of a criminal or an outcast from devil society. He takes her in and soon begins the daily lives that we follow the adventures on. So that's what this series is about, and now I'm going to talk about the books individually of what I've read and give a quick overview on how I think the story progressed and where I am currently with it. So books 1 to 4 follow the daily lives of Dale and Latina as they grow together, Latina from a small 8-year-old all the way up until adulthood. Now Dale sort of sees Latina in the beginning as a small child that he needs to protect, like a fatherly kind of figure. Latina, on the other hand, doesn't see him as that. She sees him more as a prince and knight in shining armour, someone she adores and someone who she grows to care for affectionately, that grows into blossoming love. How will this manifest over the series of the books? Well, that would be a spoiler and I don't really want to go into that, so if you're interested, I'd recommend getting into the books and seeing where it progresses. Now book 5 is where the story actually comes to an end. What happens is all the build-up ends at the end of that book, and then remaining books are full of short stories based on the lives of Dale and Latina, all the way from the childhood all the way to adulthood. And they sort of go backwards and forwards and don't really follow any kind of pattern or anything like that. So one minute you could be looking at the childhood, next adulthood, then back to childhood again. This doesn't actually work so well in my opinion. It would have been nice because of the style of books if they'd have had some focusing on her and him when she was a child, some maybe when she's in her teenage years, and then some when she's actually an adult. because it jumps around a bit, you sort of lose a bit of consistency, and it's why I actually stopped at book 7. While I enjoy short stories, I just wasn't getting the same kind of feel for this series as I was in the previous ones. So I've actually put it down for a while now, and I'm going to be picking up another one of the books I've got on my to be read list. But I plan on coming back to the last 2 books at some point. Now, book 5, which is actually the conclusion to the story, also has a rushed feel to it. It's not a major problem, it tidies up pretty nicely with the overall story, but because they cram so much into a single volume, it does actually feel like it was rushed and there's gaps missing out of it, and you wonder how certain parts of the stories actually came to be. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this one. If you've read this series and you have a different opinion, please let me know. It's something I'd like to discuss to see what other people thought about this one and how they handled the storyline. If it's one you actually want to know more about, also feel free to get in contact with me and I'd quite happily discuss it with you. So last but not least is Ascendance of a Bookworm. Now, what is it about, you might ask? Well, what happens if your life revolves around books? Well, apart from start up a YouTube channel, that is. Well, the story follows Motsu Urano, a book-loving, soon-to-be librarian, who unfortunately is caught in a freak earthquake, and she ends up being crushed by the one thing she loves most, books. In her dying breath, she actually asks to be reincarnated into another world, if possible, surrounded by the one thing she loves more than life itself, and that's books. She retains all of her memories from her previous life, and she actually retains the memories of mine, so she's soon able to actually understand the language. Unfortunately, realization soon comes to the front in the fact that books aren't available to the common class in this world. They're only available to the extremely rich and mainly the nobles of society. So we end up following Mine on her day-to-day life. She must overcome not only her sickly body, but the fact that in this world she doesn't know how to read and write. She uses inventions and ideas from her previous life to help make improvements to her current one, all while striving to actually get back the one thing she loves more than anything else, books. How will she do it? She'll print her own if they're not available to her. So we follow her on her journey while she tries out a lot of different experiments to actually make her own book. Along the way, she actually makes a lot of new friends, something that she lacked in her previous life. This is a story about how a bookworm overcomes the one thing that she misses more than anything else, and that is books, and how she grows closer to her new family and the new friends around her. This series has some of the best content I've come across in a long time, and I actually found myself devouring this more than any other series I've read before. It's easily in one of my top 3 series of all times, if not actually number 1. I can't wait for the next book to come out in May, and I'm already counting down the days until it's on pre-order for my Kindle, and then I'll get it when it gets in print as well, because I just can't wait for it to come in print. Now, I plan on doing some follow-up videos on this series because it is such a good one for myself. I'm planning to look at not only the world building in it, the fantasy and magic elements, but also the social structures that it brings, from the commoner to the upper class to the nobles, and how they all interact and how it all works. And of course, Mine's journey throughout all of them. Anyway, those are the books that I've actually read in March. If you've enjoyed hearing me talk about these and would like to talk further, please leave a comment below. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. All feedback is extremely welcome, as I'm still learning and I'm still growing as a channel. So anything you can give me as advice is greatly appreciated. Anyway, until next time, this is Stephen signing off.